Welcome to For the Love of It, Tafe New South Wales sessions. I'm your host, Steph Pappas, and on this special edition, all our guests share a common pathway that Tafe New South Wales have supported their dreams. We'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the Gadigal people of Eora Nation. We pay our respect to elders past, present and emerging. Welcome, Chef Jason Roberts to For the Love of It, Tafe New South Wales sessions.
Well, Steph, I'm slightly pumped that people still remember me.
I feel so blessed to have you here today, and I'm going to do a little introduction to you. Today we're joined by the remarkable Chef Jason Roberts. From an early age, Jason discovered his love of food and connection, and it was always beyond food. His ongoing commitment to his passion led him to becoming a celebrated chef and television personality. Jason's journey is a testament to following one's passion with heart and intuition. Beyond the kitchen, Jason is a passionate advocate for connecting people through food, and today we will explore Jason's world from the educational ventures to his ongoing commitment to health and community initiatives like No Kid Left Hungry and Chef Cycle. Jason's motto is, look inside, you have everything you need. And this just speaks, the world to me, this motto for your life and your cooking. It's about trusting your gut, using your inherent skills, and always pushing the boundary of what's possible.
Yeah.
So join us as we delve into this journey with Chef Jason Roberts. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Steph, it's such an honour to be here, but to be able to sort of think a little bit, to actually stop and engage with your journey, and sometimes we forget to do that and to honour ourselves and put ourselves first. And I think, just listening back to, a little bit about my journey and where I've come from and probably to where I'm going, a lot of it really is to do with letting go of who you think you are. That's probably been the biggest and the most significant, thing that's changed the trajectory of my life, because I came from very little. I grew up on a dairy farm in Queensland, and we dealt with a lot of abuse, and my stepfather was very abusive, and it was the federal police and the women's refuge who helped us get out of a country. And I mean, that's a lot of information, by the way, for anyone who's just jumping into this. You have to be able to find purpose in something. And I found purpose in the idea that I wanted to be a chef. And my grandparents were chefs, and I saw them as jolly, happy people. And so I'm going to be a chef no matter what. So there was no, when you're 9 or 10, I'm going to be a fireman or a policeman. Or I was never really guided by what other people had said as I'm going to be a chef. I went and did home economics prior to going to TAFE. And I may have been the only boy in that class making pikelets or pancakes or chicken chow mein or something in a very small remote kitchen with 2 other kids, maybe even at the time, but I didn't care. I wanted to be a chef. And I think this whole idea going through life to the point I'm at now, this idea of letting go, is it's okay to be you. I think there's a period of your life where you're trying to work out who you are and you're looking for other people for guidance, and we certainly need some sort of boundaries and we need some sort of education, but eventually this thing that sits inside you, it's immersive, it's intuition, it's things just start happening. And
that inner knowing. And you've taken us through quite a lot of the childhood, which really shows that you had this persistence within you, this knowing, this inner knowing of the path you wanted to take, regardless of the story, and choosing not to stay in that victim story and choosing to, to follow your path. I want to just start, because we are on TAFE campus, and just taking you back to those memories before I go back earlier. And your memories here, it was that you went to TAFE back in the early 90s. And just maybe give us a glimpse of a memory that's come to you, or because you would have been the young Jason.
I was so take this into perspective too. My parents were very young when they had me. So my mum was like 17. My dad was, I think, just before he turned 20. I was born. They separated, I think, when I was 3. And so I actually didn't see my father till I was 18. At the age of 18,
I love the story, yeah.
I met my father.
Yep.
I started cooking in Sydney,
Yep.
so I moved back from New Zealand to Australia, meet my father. How are you doing? Okay, it's time to get a job, and did all the things at once. And my first job was at Kentucky Fried Chicken.
In King's Cross.
King's
Yep.
Cross,
Yep.
I think it's number 66 King's Cross Road, opposite the train station. I loved it. They had a great jukebox. It had music. They had cool people. I'm like, this is it. I was getting 2 shifts a week, and I thought, that's it. I'm set. Anyway, that's not enough money to live off. And my father was like, yeah, you know, you probably won't be living here forever. So he actually was an interior painter. He was painting Ravisis at Bondi Beach at the time, and he must have overheard the chef, Megan Brown, at the time, said, oh, we're looking for staff, or she just had let someone go. Anyway, my dad spoke to her. Before you know it, I'm in there for a meeting. I'm like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready to leave King's Cross Kentucky Fried Chicken yet.
So at Bondi Beach, just so the listeners know.
Yeah.
I remember going there for scrambled eggs.
Well, it was known for its scrambled eggs,
yeah,
and it was the only thing you would ever get. Megan would never allow a fried egg to go out that
Yeah, I
kitchen.
remember.
We were too busy. And so it was my dad that really did get me my first job at the age of 18. I would say I had signed up. The idea was to do an apprenticeship, and 2 months after starting at Ravisi's, I managed to get, I think, the June intake. I think it was at East Sydney Tafe as under doing commercial cookery. So I was about to embark on a 2.5 years of TAFE, which went very quickly. But my time at TAFE was incredible. I remember starting. There may have been an intake of, in my class was a full class, maybe it was 25 students, kids. And I think we may have lost over the space of a few weeks. Sometimes people just leave or it doesn't work out for them. May have lost a few. But I just remember turning up and being excited every time. The red commercial cookery box. My uniform was always pristine, clean. My knives were always perfect. I had so much pride in turning up to TAFE because I felt like the knowledge I walked away with was like gold. And I drove everyone bloody nuts. I can tell you this. I'd come home from TAFE. Oh, we made veloutés, and now I know the 5 derivatives of a mother sauce, and this is what they are. And oh, today we're doing fish, and oh my God. But things that you wouldn't necessarily learn on the job. So TAFE really supported the job, and then being on the job, you're learning a lot more things in the moment. But TAFE was such an incredible part of my career. Unfortunately, I would have to say, I haven't maintained any friendships from TAFE. Yeah, no, because I think a lot of people disband, they may drop out, they do it for a few years, but I know people who went through the TAFE course, but not that were in my class.
Is there a teacher that really?
Yes.
Yeah.
I had a number. I remember Bridget Trelaw. She was the very first teacher I had. I'm pretty sure, I don't know if she's still teaching. And then I had Les Giorfi. Les in the time was, I think he may have been Hungarian, but he would have been about 80, and I would say probably up there somewhere now, maybe even in this room, maybe. I was very fortunate with my teachers, and I'd say every student would have a different experience with their teachers, depending on the level of interest they showed at TAFE. My very first teacher, though, that I signed up with, she actually passed away of cancer, I think, in the first 4 weeks that I actually started at TAFE, which was sad. But we evolved. We started going through the courses and doing the curriculum. But I have such vivid, strong memories of Les because I did leave TAFE with 100% in my final exam. I still have what he had written down. He took the time to handwrite a note, talking about my final exam, and it's 100% sort of thing. It's laminated. I wish I had it to bring to show.
Yeah.
It's really special to me.
Is that what you brought today?
I should have, and I do know where it is. The thing is with this piece of paper, it's something it's a treasure map to me. It's something that I have so much pride in, and I got my my TAFE certificate with a red stamp on it, and wow, that was my trade skill. And I think the thing about Les was that he really identified with us as humans, not just students. And so we could be doing hours of, practical, and then we'd do our theory. And if he knew we were working 5 and 6 shifts already in a restaurant, if there was a time, sometimes in theory it's like, a bit of a yawn, and we'd put our head down and we'd probably nap for an hour. But if we showed up, I'm not just saying showed up as in showed up to class, we showed up, we did our homework, we showed interest, he looked after us. So I have such fond memories of him, not just because of the 100% that I got in my final exam, but because he was a real human and someone I thought taught us more than just food. It was humility.
I just want to highlight back, because I don't want to go too much back in your childhood, because you gave us a really good overview of that. But you did grow up around your grandparents.
Yep.
There was both grandparents on both sides, but then you share a beautiful memory, like even at the age of 4, when you really associated what food was to you.
Yeah.
Do you want to just share that little one moment? Yeah.
There were probably many
more moments, but yeah.
There were probably many moments, but the one thing that I really remember was that I always saw my grandparents as those loving, doting, joyful humans. And I just have a very vivid memory, I guess, of walking through the... so my grandparents were in New Zealand, and my grandparents on my mother's side were the head caterers at Waitaki Girls High School, and it was like a boarding school. And so I remember every second Christmas we would come back to stay in New Zealand with my grandparents, and we would stay in the boarding rooms. And I remember this one particular time, obviously when I was very young, was my grandmother having me in her arms, and probably the other doting, the women, I'm pretty sure it was all women at that time too, in this catering, handing me cookies and laughing and probably squeezing cheeks and being happy, and you know, that break. But it's such a strong memory for me, and it's a feeling more than a memory, that I can always go back to that and go, that's what it is to be in the kitchen.
And that association with the kitchen.
Big time, big time. So then everything moving forward from that is like, I carry that joy that sits here, and I think that's who I am today, is that person who's trying to share that with other people.
And you absolutely are. Coming back now, you're in Sydney, you're living in Bondi, and there was a few mentors along the way. And before we get to a big mentor in your life, you actually went on from Ravisi's to work for Mark Armstrong. And during that experience, that really connected you to Damien. Do you want to mention how it opened the doors? Because to get to Bistro Moncur...
It was a journey, and I would say this to anyone who's listening, who's keen on jumping into a trade, and I highly recommend it, because we're starved and we're short on tradespeople, and it's an area that we should be really supporting. Clearly got into cooking, got into commercial cookery, went through Tafe, and during that time at Tafe, I jumped from Ravisi's to Armstrong's, which is actually quite an easy transition. I love the idea, because Armstrong's was in Manly, that once a week I was jumping on the ferry to come to Tafe. I was like, oh, this is a cool experience. I have to go on a boat to get to school, basically. Armstrong's was really important to me, I think, as far as my career, because it was tough. It was also, for me, the food was amazing at Ravisi's, the food was incredible at Armstrong's, but it was gearing me towards an understanding of classical French cuisine. I'd say it's quite a cosmopolitan menu. There was sushi on it, there was terrines on it, there was a little bit of everything. There was fish and chips, and very tourist. Manly was very touristy, so you would have felt like 4,000 people, maybe it was 400 people, would get off the ferry and walk straight into our restaurant, and they would order curries and fish and chips. I was on the larder section, and forever getting worked, like pumped at the fish and at the deep fryer. I'd say Armstrong's was very important to me, because there was a point in my career where I came home crying. The manager of the restaurant rode me like you wouldn't believe. Like, he was on my case. And I think it happens a lot. And if you can navigate that, you come out on top. You come out the bigger person for it. But I remember sitting on my couch at home. Actually, it was probably a milk crate, not a couch, on an apprenticeship wage at the time, and head in my hands like this, just like, what am I doing? What am I doing? And I don't think I had the ability to talk to anyone about it either, which probably made it harder. I think, men should be men and don't talk about that shit. But I went home and I was just distraught. I thought this was it. I think, I can't do this. But I never saw it as I'm going to leave the industry. I just thought, I don't know what I thought. I thought, I can't do this. And I don't know if that was, we're tipping into the poor side of mental health or whatever it is. That wasn't a thing back then. It was just, this is just hard. This is really hard.
Were they working you really long hours? Yeah.
No, I was doing the long hours. Long hours are not a problem when you're 19 and 20, because I'd get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, go surfing before. Like, the work life was good. No, it was actually just one person.
Right.
And I would say, without mentioning names, I would say, no, it bordered on bullying.
Yes.
Like, it's a thing.
And you've really got to have a method of resiliency towards this.
But unless you're taught that, you don't know either. So I don't know how I managed to. What did happen, I'll tell you what happened. Thank you, Tafe Australia. I think what happened was, during this time, I was awarded Apprentice of the Year. Probably 93, I think it was, and so I received the certificate. Yeah. I was like, I showed this particular person the certificate. I was like, look at the certificate with a finger. And I think he acknowledged that. And then it came time to leaving. You know, I spent maybe a year there, and then he actually bought me a book. He bought me a cookbook of, chefs from around the world, basically. Damien was one of the chefs. Yes. He was my mentor. He was in this book. And unbeknownst to me at the time, that's who I was going to go work for next. Bistro Moncur had opened in 1993, and 6 months later, I was there.
You moved on to it.
I had a friend who was working there. I wanted to come back to the east side. I had friends who were living in Bondi, and I'm like, oh, that could work. I didn't know at the time what was about to evolve, but I was ready for something new. But that transition from Armstrong's to Moncur was what started to set me up for this understanding of classical French cuisine.
And we're referring to Damien Pignolet. Is that how we say it?
Pignolet. It's not an easy. I call him Piggers. He'd be horrified, but his name is Damien Pignolet. DP. DP. Yep.
You've shared that Damien has presented many doors over the years, one that have led to many life lessons. Mm-hmm. I'm grateful for all of them, most of which I can see didn't happen to me, but to me.
Yep.
They're all evolved food and been related to life, death, dreams, community and humility.
Yeah. I would say to share with that where that really come from, and I can identify with who Damien is because of those, because of those feelings and those sentiments. Damien was very good at supporting, and still is very good at supporting, the younger demographic of chefs. And at the time, as a young apprentice, I did the hours. He would recognise that. I went from being an apprentice to a pastry chef to a second chef to a head chef, all in the space of 4 years. By the time I was 23, I was head chef at Bistro Moncur, and we maintained 2 hats, which was, in its time, was quite significant as far as restaurants in Sydney. But Damien was good at giving books. So I had a number of books by Julia Child, I had Escoffier, Maggie. Yeah. So I got to know, because of Damien, I got to know Maggie Beer and Stephanie Alexander. There were a number of books, but there's one particular book, actually a couple of books, but there's one particular book written by Briette Savarin, is of early French philosopher. He came from a family of lawyers. By the time he was 50, he changed everything and started with food, but he wrote The Physiology of Taste, which is a correlation between food and life, food and dreams, food and death, food and community, food and everything. And I just see that's what Damien was to me. And when we talk about doors that open and doors that shut, they're all opportunities, whether they open or they shut. Yeah. It's an opportunity to move to the next phase. And I've always welcomed that. It's like being here in front of a camera if you've never been in front of a camera before and feeling nervous and like, oh, I don't know where I'm at right now. But until you jump off and do it, you'll never know where you're meant to be. So I see that as an opportunity to flex. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Yeah, I love that saying. Yes, and it resonates with me more now than it did 10 years ago and 20 years ago.
Yes, it takes time to move into our skin and be comfortable with that.
Yeah.
I wanted to just not move over one of the most, I thought, extraordinary points that you were 23 when you became head chef. And I just want to acknowledge that because Damien shares, if you go over to Chef Jason Roberts' Instagram, you have him now on a podcast, but he shares a beautiful story how he was over in France, he got a phone call that their chef had just left and they were looking for someone and they were panicked, whoever the manager was calling him. He said, I will handle it in the morning because he got a call at 3 a.m. And then in the morning he calmly said, give it to Jason Roberts. Yeah. He will now jump up to, and I just thought that was extraordinary, another door opening, because they must have just seen that your determination and your passion. But following on from this experience, you got offered to be on television 5 days a week on Fresh. Yep. And then went on to Ready, Steady, Cook. You also share that even when this opportunity came, it wasn't something that you were seeking, it wasn't something that you were looking for, but it was something, again, that presented itself. And do you want to just experience, because you felt like you were quite nervous at that, and I love that you shared that,
I would say, so my time at Bistro Moncur So as I mentioned before, from being an apprentice to pastry chef, to second chef, to head chef at an early age. At that time, I'd say between the ages of 23, 24, 25, and maybe even 26, Short Black, the Good Food Guide, or the Good Food that would come, that piece in the paper that come out every Tuesday. Yep. Like every chef would read it to see A, whether they were in it, B, whether they were getting a review, and C, where the next restaurant they go and check out was, sort of thing. So it was the thing. And so I would say there was plenty of times where I was in that section under review or being a young chef in the industry. And then there was just more opportunity. What happened in 2000 was Jamie Oliver.
Jamie Oliver, yeah.
So Jamie Oliver had hit the scene in 2000. At that point, I was 26. And Channel 9 were looking for their next Jamie Oliver, or looking for a version of. And I believe that Neil Perry was being looked at as that chef for quite some time. I wasn't even aware there was a show being filmed, or I didn't have time for daytime television. Actually, I didn't have time for television. I could not tell you anything that was on television in the 90s. I was working. Some days I would work 7 days a week because I'd work at other restaurants to learn more. I worked at a Thai restaurant. I got a free feed and I learnt more. So the 90s, I don't really remember anything outside of working in a restaurant. Jamie Oliver hit the scene in 2000. It was also the time that we had the Olympic Games.
Yep.
A lot of excitement in the air. And before signing to Channel 9, I'd actually filmed a pilot for another show. I believe it was called Live This. And it was to be aired on Channel 10, so we shot the pilot. It got the thumbs up, but they were just waiting for the slot to present itself. And I think it ended up being on a Thursday afternoon. Shot the pilot, waiting on that. Yeah, this is exciting, I think. I'm nervous, but yeah, that's a thing. And when you're that age, you put your hand up for everything. You want to try everything. But Channel 9 reached out. I don't know how they got a hold of me, but there was myself, Darren Simpson, rest his soul, and Ashley Hughes from Alio Restaurant. Both those boys were River Cafe chefs who'd been at River Cafe, the same place Jamie really was noted or noticed. And all three of us in our own restaurants did a piece to camera, and somehow I had something. I don't know what they saw, but Lyndall Marks, who was the executive producer of Fresh and a number of other restaurants, saw something in me that I couldn't even see. And I remember very, very vividly being in the back hallways of Channel 9 doing this piece to a camera, one of those little ones with a little flip thing, maybe a little bit different to that. And I'm doing this. When you're at that age, you want to cook the food that you want to cook. You're not thinking about the house mum at home and the 3 kids, and you're not thinking that. So I decided to do a stuffed artichoke and braise it and whatever. So I put these artichokes, I've stuffed them in the bottom of a pan, lid on, oil, lots of oil, so it gets crisp on the bottom, and then you add white wine, lid on, and any one of the. So Lyndall's there filming me, trying to get the most. Okay, so be more natural. And when you're back of house, so kitchen back of house, you're not used to dealing with customers. So, and many of you probably know that chefs can be quite nasty. I was never one of those people.
No,
it was not in my blood to be that person. But it was hard to get that out. But Lyndall still felt she saw something anyway. I'd say the real icebreaker was when she's filming and this artichoke decided to explode, and we both freaked out in the moment, sort of thing. But it was like, that explosion was like, just be you. It's not about the food. It's how you handle the moment. And so then I went on to do 4 years, 5 days a week with Channel 9. For 2 of those years, I maintained running Bistro Moncur as the head chef. 7 days a week was enough. Damien sort of put it to me, look, you're killing yourself. You need to choose. And I chose the TV. I just saw the opportunity. So when we said before, there's doors that open, doors that close, they're all possibilities and they're all opportunities. TV was still new for me, even though I'd done 4 years. And then Channel 9, I think at the time I had a manager who was asking too much and clashed with the executive producers, so that opportunity went away. I went on to Ready Steady Cook, become one of the regulars on that for a year and a half.
I think we all remember watching that.
Yes, it's weird. People say to me,
yeah.
But people say to me, I remember were you a chef? I said, I used to do a show called Fresh. Nah, don't know that one. But that was for 4 years, 5 days a week. But Ready Steady Cook maybe appeared once every couple of weeks. Anyway, clearly had a better following. And then from there,
fresh.
I went on to do books and moved to the States and
Well, I want to
do different
go
things.
to moving on to the States. Before I go there, I want to also acknowledge you had this incredible ability to staying away from drugs and alcohol during this whole period. Just talking about sustaining, still
Yep.
being a head chef. And I just want to say that was something your mother helped inspire within you, would you say? Like,
Yeah, I would, and probably very important to people who are watching this too. I think it's really important to understand that there are going to be distractions in life,
yes,
whether they're drugs, alcohol, sex, gambling,
women, men.
anything that is
Yep.
avoidant of what's really happening in the moment, and probably more prevalent now than it has ever been, is distraction and not being able to deal with past life, past traumas, and everything that we've ever been through. And I would say this is what makes me who I am today. This is the bit that I'm going, I like being me. Because I've learned to let go of all the other stuff, and I'll face all this stuff. And I have, at any one point, I've got 2 or 3 mates who are dealing with someone, and you can talk to them round and round in circles and they just don't get it. But every now and then you'll drop the perfect sentiment to them. And I have a friend of mine who's dealing with some really heavy stuff. He's
Yes.
30. He's like a 30-year-old child, and I love him dearly. But he's someone that I care about, and I think he brings a lot of good to the world. And I said to him yesterday, he's in a situation that's very abusive, and he's, probably 12 hours north by car, sort of thing. And I said, just get in your car and drive. We can replace your clothing. We can't replace you. And that hit him. He goes,
Mindfulness, yeah.
mindfulness. But
Yeah.
it was a trigger for him. He was like, oh my God, you're right. But I could talk for hours and hours about all the other good things that he brings to the world and not stay in it.
Yeah.
But it's not till he registers something. So I sometimes think there's not enough words in the English language to articulate feelings.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I love that we touched on that because I thought that really helped you sustain the longevity that you had. And then you went over to the States, which, the ego could have blown in, but you got incredible opportunities there.
Yeah.
Want to take us on a little journey? I mean, the Osborne show and...
So I have done a lot of of TV. I have done a lot of TV in the States. Everything from Good Morning America, Sharon Osbourne show, Wayne Brady's show, E Network, having my own show. But just to recap on what you did start out with, as far as drugs and alcohol and avoiding it, I think I started this whole thing off by saying we grew up in a very abusive situation. I always knew, through conversations with my mum, and sometimes that there's always going to be 3 stories. But when you're a young boy and your mum's bringing you up as both the mother and the father, and there's abusive stepfather, you listen to your mother, and it's important. So she said, your father did drugs. I watched my stepfather do alcohol, and I saw the effects on my mum. I felt the effects as a young man. So they just weren't in my vocabulary. It just wasn't me. I remember, and hospitality industry is notorious for it. Antisocial hours, drugs, alcohol. I remember sitting around a table.
Like the music industry, a lot of it, yeah.
Well, and it is, But I would say that's because of the creative side and the hours that you work. It's so easy to fall into that. But I remember being in a room with a group of people, handing around a plate of cocaine at the time, and saying no. But just because I was in that room, I thought I was going to jail. I felt like, I was like, I don't know. I thought I was going to jail just because I was associated to it or being around it. I avoided it, but there was a point that was really cool that became like, I'm different. I like being different. I love the fact that I can go dancing at all night on a marble bar at a club in Sydney and not be drinking or doing drugs. And everyone go, oh, what are you on, mate? What are you on? I'm like,
nothing.
Grenadine and milk, actually. Nothing. I was high on life. I loved my job. I have a very distinct moment when I was walking down to Bistro Moncur one day, and I may have been the second chef, maybe even the head chef, and taking this incredible big breath and going, oh, how good is life?
Yeah.
It was good because I had a great balance.
Yeah.
And throughout life and marriage and divorce and having children and some of the, COVID, these moments of where it just feels heavy.
Yeah.
But every now and then when you actually mindfully stop somewhere, sun's on your face, take a breath and go, great balance. I've got it. I'm doing the thing.
I love it. There's so much I want to get through with you today. I'm just conscious because we went to America and there was a lot of experiences there to the point where Cleveland became another home to you.
Yes.
And you love
America
it
was very easy for me because think of it like this: you're when you're here, there's something about being in Australia that it's just tricky as a young chef and then evolving. But going to America, you got a different accent. It's just easy. I had cookbooks out and I got the opportunity with so many shows.
Yeah, amazing. There was an experience that you shared where it sounded like, one of those pivotal roads.
Yep.
An event that you went to, Soil to Stomach, and there was an Aboriginal proverb. Do you want me to share that?
Yes.
All visitors to this place, this time we're just passing through. Our purpose here is to learn, to grow and to love, and then to return home.
Yep.
I love that you share this because it sounded like, we talked about COVID and during this time that you really thrived in this time, and you found that you've got all this wisdom now, and now this chapter you want to educate and teach. Do you want to? We'll go now to that because you've got G'day Neighbour, and then you've helped with all these charities. Yeah.
I would say at the forefront of every thought that I have from now on in.
Yes.
Taking into consideration, and there's also a very old Maori proverb that I really love, and it's all to do with walking backwards into your future. And I would say at the forefront of everything that I'm thinking through, whether it be navigating a friend's, poor mental health or a next opportunity, there's always this primal understanding. What did the cavemen do? So I start the morning with a cold shower. Cavemen didn't have hot showers. Nose to tail eating. I'm going to utilise the whole animal. I'm not just going to take the best cut because that's what a caveman would do. So I now understand food, and the regenerative story is really important to me, and I see that everything that we eat, drink, fruit, vegetable, meat, plant, whatever it is merely a vessel for what's in the soil. And so soil nutrition is key. So I see the importance of that to gut journey. And it's strange, like we were talking about the physiology of taste and Briette Severa and how you can correlate the connection between food and life, food and dreams. I see it as soil and dreams, soil and life, and what the cavemen did. I would say I've actually surmised my life and who I am as a human as someone who's probably just simplified the idea of what living is. There is before life, after death, the rest is experience, and you can't stick roof racks on a coffin. We're here to share knowledge, and we have one job, and that's to share knowledge. Whether we're a parent or not, we can share knowledge.
And sharing with knowledge, you've got incredible things you're doing at the moment. G'day Neighbour, and
no, it's G'day Neighbour.
G'day Neighbour.
You've got to give it some. G'day Neighbour.
G'day Neighbour. Do you want to touch on G'day Neighbour? You're also doing ceramics.
Yep.
I mean, we could talk for
I know,
episodes
to be honest,
on this. You're doing ceramics, and
I should probably sign back up at Tafe and learn how to do it properly.
I know. No, the ceramics is incredible that you're sharing. Again, go over to Jason's Instagram and you can see it there. And still involved in a lot of charities, and you've got taco nights where you do fish tacos down in the Bondi community.
Yeah, this is all very much
all similar, educating,
but community driven and looking out for one another. It's who we are as humans. We're meant to share in humility. But everything you just mentioned, so G'day Neighbour was a way of connecting people during COVID.
Yes.
The potteries was a way of connecting grief when my dad died, grief with joy, and at some point they do meet. And you work out that I am becoming me because of what I've went through and who I am. And I can share that knowledge, and other people will grow and evolve because of it. You meant to pass on this knowledge. So everything that I have going at this point in time, it probably is a lot, it is tiring, but I just think life's too short not to do all the things. And never put your career, never see it as a trophy on a wall, because you'll sit there and look at it and thinking, that's all I'm ever going to be. You can be anything and everything all at the same time. Yeah,
as you showed, you've transitioned from many different pathways. So looking back and reflecting on speaking to the younger Jason, what wisdom would you share for any student stepping into hospitality and to be a chef in the path of Tafe New South Wales?
Yeah, I think it's really important for let's just say any person, maybe 14, 15, 16, not quite sure where they want to go. I love the idea of a trade, and I think we have to really be more conscious of where the world is going, particularly with AI and things are being done for us. Fast food, food's being delivered. Yeah. We've sort of almost stopped participating in life. It's important to have something you gravitate towards I would see my younger self, and looking back, I'm going to look back and I'm grateful for the time that we had as young chefs and young apprentices. It really was having this sense of purpose and knowing that I did want to become a chef and that a trade was really important. For anyone who's at this point in life, we're talking about 2024 and 2025
Yes.
and moving forward, you're navigating a lot more. It's time to stop flicking through life and it's time to start participating. If you're unsure what you want to do, just sign and show up. But show up for you, show up. I would be jumping on the computer now and looking at courses and finding something and finding connections to it and become that person. I'm tired of looking through social media and seeing all the people pretending without the skill base.
Yes.
Tafe creates skills.
Exactly. Because we're on For the Love of It, did you bring something you love to share with us before we go?
I did.
Yes.
I'm so excited to share this with you because there were many things, I could have bought a piece of pottery or a hot steamy breakfast.
I thought you might
for
bring
everyone.
some pottery.
Or some food.
Bake us, cook us something.
Awesome food for everyone. I think what was important to me, and there's two images here, and I'll show you
I love this. Yeah,
the
what have you got?
the first one really that I want to show you, and if I can hold it up to you. Is that okay? We're good? We got the thumbs up
Camera
behind.
one or camera two?
That one there, making sure we got no glare on it because of the light. Are we good? Up, direction is good. Good, got it. So this is a group of local kids on my street, and the young one next to me is Major. Major lives down in Melbourne.
Yes.
I've spoken about Major. And Major's given me a lot of purpose in the sense that I see myself as a mentor to her, as the other kids as well. So this image was probably taken about 3 years ago. But I am who I am today because of these kids. I find the importance of sharing knowledge. The taco nights that we talked about, so the kids all turn up and they're running around the street and they're protected and they feel safe and they're loved. So I see these kids as mentorees. I see them as wild children having to navigate, the world that we live in now, but I see myself as a pillar and a post for them as well. In years to come when I'm long gone, they'll walk past this house where I live, where I pass these tacos out that window, go, do you remember when? It was a time when we felt safe. So I will always look at that image. It sits in my lounge room to date up on a hook. And I look at that and I go, do you know what? I've done life.
And we should mention that is where, when you came first to Sydney,
Yeah.
that's where your dad lived.
Wow,
Yeah.
yeah. So this is
Yeah.
it's a big thing for
Yeah.
me. So in this window here is the sunroom.
Yes.
For 3 months, I slept on a mattress on that floor. It's now where I film all my video assets for different brands that I work with. It's where the tacos come out of. And every now and then I pinch myself, and I don't know what that would ever mean to someone else, but to me it's like,
Full
wow,
circle.
this
Yeah.
space was the start of my life. So that's the local kids, and like I said, these are this image brings me so much joy because I know I am exactly where I'm meant to be. The other image is of the Roberts boys. Are we good? We good? Up a bit higher. They're good. That's my father in the middle. His knees started to give out as he got older and he'd become shorter. He mind you, I'm standing on my tippy toes because that's who we are. And that's my son.
Yes.
And so I
Acknowledge
come from a long line of last males, if that makes sense. So I was the last Roberts boy. My father was the last Roberts boy. My son is the last Roberts boy. His mum went on to remarry and he has a hyphenated last name. And so I pride our family heritage and our family name. Like, we also come from a long line of accidents too. I've had to have that conversation with my son, like, be careful. And so, but I love the fact that we're curious humans. And there is something really special about having family values as you get older and being able to look at an image to know that's where you've come from. And my dad, he passed away a couple of years ago, but, I learned so many great things from him. Like I'd go through, it was very raw, his information to me because we didn't meet really till I was 18. But if I was going through a relationship breakup, it happened once or twice. He said, "It's all right, boy, just get on the next bus." You can either sit there and sulk about it, or you just get back on the next bus. And in the moment, it's not very helpful. It's not loving, it's not caring, but for some reason now it's like, it was true. you choose to get back up on that, get back out there, and put yourself out there. The other thing that he used to say was, you know, it didn't matter what we were going through, and whether it was relationships or I started cycling with my father or whatever. He said, "It's all right, boy. You'll always have a Roberts motor." And so that's something I've really been trying to instill in my son as well. No matter what's going on in your world, you've always got a Roberts motor. You've always got the ability to make decisions and choices. And so the last, you know, one of the tattoos I have on my wrist says Roberts motor, and it's a reminder because I do cycle. Sometimes when you're ready to give up, it's a long ride, or you're going for a run, or you're doing anything, and you look down at that and go, "That's right, I can hear my father. You've got a Roberts motor, boy." And I don't want to let him down. So legacy is everything to me. It's become more prevalent now.
This is my gift to you. I hope I got it right.
You did. You did. And there's a saying about when someone's passing, and this is what I realized at the time. When someone's passing and they're close to you, you'll see a lot more feathers.
Yes.
So when my dad was dying, he was given 2 months to live. He was diagnosed with esophageal cancer. Generally, when you're diagnosed with esophageal cancer, you will die with esophageal cancer. There's no screening for it yet. You may prolong it. You may go through sectioning of your esophagus and what have you, but it was a hard pill to swallow. And his sister, my auntie, died a month before my father got his diagnosis, so it was quite heavy. When my dad got his diagnosis, he was like, "Well, that's it. I'm going to die. In fact, I'll end up myself," which caused a whole lot of complications when it come to him having medications. But I started finding feathers, and I would go and hike. It was the only respite I had because I just said to him I would come and care for him. He lived on a yacht. I was finding feathers. They were particularly kookaburra feathers, and so I have these kookaburra feathers that, look at that, look, they sort of sit like that. So I was finding these kookaburra feathers, and then when he died, I was still finding them. So that's significant to me. Everyone will deal with grief in their own way, and you will see feathers, butterflies, angels, lights, rainbows, whatever it may be. But that is part of your healing, and I find it really powerful. What I will tell you, though, when my dad died, that hiking was really important. The avoidance of drugs.
Connection to nature. Yes.
Yeah, well, the avoidance of drugs and alcohol and all the other things. And I think as a human, talking about the importance of sharing knowledge is really important to me, not just for my son, but my community. I believe we're here to help restore balance on the planet and on the earth. And it is so giving. It was beeping hard. It was really hard, the hardest thing I've ever done, but it was an important part of who I was to step up to do that. I am my father's only son. And I knew on the other side of that, I would start to heal and I would become a bigger person because of it. Anyway, and during that time where he lived in Laurelton, about half an hour south of Port Macquarie, there was a hiking trail and it was hard. It was a place to suffer. I would walk that mountain every day. I'd give myself an hour to go and do it, like an hour's respite every day. I'd walk that mountain and it was hard. My legs were screaming and I would find points and I would howl like a wolf and I would empty my lungs and feel the vibration. And it was the only thing that gave me some sort of respite mentally as well.
Releasing that grief.
Yeah, so being out in nature is really important to me. I think it's important to everyone, but to avoid drugs, alcohol, sex, all the things that are distractions and allow the earth to help restore the balance between grief and joy.
Well, thank you.
No, thank you. And what another great reminder that my dad is present. Don't, I know, I'm sorry.
Thank you so much, Chef Jason Roberts. Looking at you and looking over here. Thank you so much, Jeff.
I get Jeff all the time.
Thank you so much, Chef Jason Roberts, for joining us on Tafe New South Wales Sessions. And please head over to Chef Jason Roberts on Instagram, on the socials, and check out G'day Neighbour and the taco nights and support Chef Jason Roberts. I'm Steph Pappas, your host. Thank you so much.
Job.
Oh.